So, this happened. No, I didn't break my priciest fountain pen. It's simply disassembled for cleaning and refilling. Hi, I'm Irene. I've been fountain penning for a little over a year, and I feel confident enough to do this to an $80 TWSBI VAC 700R. But that isn't the focus of this video. It's merely preparation for the letter writing to come later in this session. I knew I wanted to use one of my favorite inks in one of my favorite pens, so I cleansed out my TWSBI and pulled out a bottle of HERBIN's Poussière de Lune. Before reassembly, I smeared a small amount of silicone grease on the rubber gasket. That's the part that keeps the ink inside the barrel. By turning the end cap, you can allow the ink to saturate the feed. By turning it the other way, you seal the reservoir from the feed, reducing the chance of accidental leakage. When it comes time to insert the nib and feed pieces, some pens are trickier than others. This wasn't too hard. It just took a few moments of precision adjustment. This is one of my favorite pens. It's an excellent writer with impressive ink capacity. It's got cool factor up the yin-yang, and it was gifted to me. Would I spend $80 on a pen? Well, to me, that's a lot of money. But over the past year, I've gotten a lot of enjoyment from this instrument. So I want to say, if you can afford it, yes, it's worth the price. Thanks to friends and family, I have some really lovely inks. But I wanted to go retro, so I chose one of my earliest ink acquisitions, HERBIN's Poussière de Lune. I love a good shade of purple, and this is one of my favorites. You'll see that as I plunge the rod several times, I'm not getting a full fill. If you want to see how to fill it completely, I recommend the Goulet Pen Company's video demonstrating a special technique. I'll link it in the description. Personally, I don't bother since I usually use a syringe for filling my pens, but I use the vacuum filling method here for demonstration purposes. Mostly, though, I like to switch inks fairly frequently, so a half fill works just fine for me. By the way, always have a tissue handy for pen wiping. I don't know why I panic upon realizing there's nothing at hand to wipe away those little droplets of ink. They aren't going to do that much damage. I could even wipe it away with my fingers, but I get all, oh no, tissue now. Maybe it's related to my unreasonable fear of the garage. Normally, I can shrug off the effects of a scary movie, but The Haunting of Hill House has instilled a dread that's lasted for years. Oh, it's not constant or anything. I mean, I'm not quaking in my bed at night. It only pops up when I have to enter the garage. Because that's when I recall Luke's dumbwaiter to the basement experience. So the whole time I'm feeling for the light switch, rushing to the freezer, grabbing what I need, and deliberately not looking for sudden movements between the crates and boxes, I'm thinking to myself, stay calm and maybe the ghouls won't notice you. Just keep it together, woman. Of course, that didn't stop me from watching subsequent seasons. I love that crap. I finally got to use my Clairefontaine Triumph paper for the main purpose I got it to begin with, letter writing. With the included line-ruled sheet underneath, I lightly sketched the header using a pencil, before switching to the fountain pen. I'm sure there are people who've never written snail mail in their life. You know, physically on paper rather than email or text. And that's fine. No judgment here. It's just how we live now. But there's joy in analog correspondence that's missing in its digital counterpart. And it's not derived from one thing, but rather a combination of many. Look, I'm not trying to convince anyone to toss their electronic devices out the window. I'm simply trying to figure this out for myself, so bear with me as I work through this. The pen and ink aspects bring their own delights, the most obvious being tactility and the ability to indulge in colors. The paper you write on provides a blank canvas for creativity, whether it's in content or a florid script or little doodles. Add in the practical elements of envelopes and stamps, well, those are also aesthetic choices. I'm no letter writer extraordinaire, far from it. And if pen pals were rated on performance, I'd definitely be sitting in the bottom half. But I appreciate the process and the benefits that correspondence brings to both the sender and the receiver. But enough pontificating. Sheesh. Today is a coffee day. Some days are tea days, while others are lemonade or soda pop days. But yeah, today is definitely a coffee day. Years ago, I used to take in way too much caffeine, and when I occasionally took a break, the withdrawal was just awful. A week or more of severe headaches and mental fog. So I changed my habits and thankfully haven't experienced caffeine withdrawal in a long time. When I was a child, my mom only ever had instant coffee in the house. Folgers, I think. But in my teenage years, my brother Frank treated me to my first fancy coffee. I think it was a hazelnut latte. Well, I must have expressed my appreciation, because it wasn't long afterward when he gave me my first coffee maker. It was a second-hand stainless steel stovetop percolator. Old school, yes, but I was delighted. If I recall correctly, it served me for a year or so before I bought a Mr. Coffee Jr. with the 4-cup carafe. I've since gone through several other coffee makers, but funnily enough, I'm currently using a Mr. Coffee brand machine. We got it like 6 years ago. It's already lasted longer than the pricier brand we'd had before it. This all reminds me that for a few years during my late teens and early 20s, I worked in food service. I got to handle a couple of big commercial urns that had spigots to dispense the coffee, or as the customers called it, motor oil. It was at an Army base snack bar that served hot breakfasts and lunches. The dining area had a TV and a jukebox. It was the late 80s, and I was very much into new wave music, which was the alternative of the time. Yeah, there weren't any of my favorite tunes on the jukebox, so I played the heck out of Cheap Trick's The Flame. I discovered the dish SOS there. I'd never encountered it before, but it became an instant favorite. I was seriously wondering, where has this heavenly goop been all my 19 years? Their fried chicken was absolutely delicious. I didn't understand it. It came frozen in a bag, yet it was some of the most flavorful fried chicken I've ever had. We had a Japanese cook that reminded me of my mom. She made the best fried rice. Oh, and every morning Winchell's delivered our donut order for the day. I formed a solid relationship with the bear claws. Never tried the liver and onions, though. To this day, I'm quite content to live a liver and onions free life. I was there for several years, but the commute was brutal. I spent a total of 3 hours on buses each day, much of it through some of the seedier areas of the city. Yeah, I was pretty naive, so it was eye-opening for sure. By the way, be sure and check out Sarah's YouTube channel at Sarah Bailey Arts. She does all kinds of creative projects, including painting, fountain pens and inks, and much more. I've been thinking, in a way, writing letters is sort of like passing notes in school. I don't mean a small scrap of paper with 2 lines on it and a doodle of the teacher with devil's horns. I mean a full sheet covered from corner to corner with jokes, observations, and gossip. They were folded into complicated, almost origami-like packets and dropped through the ventilation slots of your mailbox. I mean locker. I had one friend during 8th grade that regularly exchanged such notes with me, and for a short time after she moved away, we carried it over to snail mail. The point is, if you think writing letters is tedious, just pretend you're passing notes to your cooler-than-you friends, which is easier than you might think. I mean, if you add enough smiley faces and stickers, you'll feel 14 again right quick. Since I'm reminiscing about school, does anyone else recall those orange peachy folders? The ones with circa 1960s athletic illustrations? Oh, the indignities we imposed on those poor figures. Like drawing sticks of dynamite in the runner's hands and adding a dashed sightline from the female skier's eyes to the basketball player's crotch. You know, the classics. I'd better take it easy on the remember when stuff. People will get the idea I'm living in the past, and that's not the case. I don't want to return to the past. I like streaming movies, Wikipedia, and cell phones way too much for that. It's true. I'm a thoroughly modern gal that way. So if you're wondering what to do with those spiffy fountain pens and inks you've been accumulating, well, letter writing is an excellent use for them. I can't imagine anyone who wouldn't welcome something other than bills in their mailbox. As always, I'm happy to share this experience. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay rightsy, my friends.